On the latest episode of Ready to Love, the ladies meet the guy's family, mainly cousins, not parents. And with that, it just leads to a double back of many of the issues the men have already mentioned, or even the ladies have mentioned thus far, but because we're so close to the end, now they have to address it. For example, Aries can't get past the feeling that Phil isn't financially stable, and he's starting to get tired of that. For with every mention, hint, or subtle, like, jab, for lack of a better way of putting it, it's starting to get to him a little bit. And then when it comes to Jessica and Maria, while in many ways they're very much compatible, once it comes to the whole religious and spiritual aspect, she still is very closed off to everything that he's into. And then when you add in the fact that she wants multiple children and that she has zero or very little interest in moving to Africa, it's something that pushes Katarina to a higher position, since Katarina, like Maria, whether or not they have kids, it's like whatever to them. And with her more open to travel to Africa, or more open spiritually, there's a better chance there. But as Maria says himself, she's a new connection compared to this other one, which has been established far longer. So he's a little bit torn. And then, of course, we talk about Quentin, because he's so locked in when it comes to Janelle, having to hear her talk about how she doesn't really want to have a biological child, or maybe isn't able to because she's 41, so what's considered a geriatric pregnancy, which is not always easy for women. It really puts that 10-year age difference in perspective, but at the same time, he also looks over at Lee, and while Lee is also into fitness like him, wants kids like him, at the same time, he also recognizes they don't click like on paper they potentially should. She's a nice girl and all, but it's just clearly, as shown by the Getaway episodes and even before that, yes, Lee may be an attractive young woman, but at the same time, there's something missing there for these men to really take the initiative to get to know her and make it so that the attraction can feel mutual. Hence why, after going on a date with Quentin, Lee decides to just call it quits. She sees the writing on the wall, finally, and decides Quentin's not really going to give her the type of time, the effort that she needs or deserves, so might as well cut losses now rather than continue and potentially get eliminated. But with that in mind, so comes the question of what's next for these men, considering the next episode has them meeting the families of the ladies, and then the final decision that they need to make. As noted, Phil is not very happy about having to justify his life, his finances, and everything. When it comes to Quentin, now with just having to worry about Janelle, there's a question of when it comes to having kids, how much of a make or break is that? How much of a make or break is that for him, especially considering she's fully willing to adopt, but biological kids are not likely. Never mind. We have to always remember when we talk about final couples for this, it's not like these are the last people on earth. Quentin, through personal training and whatever else he does with his life, likely sees and meets other women while this whole journey was happening. So committing to someone who has a deal breaker of that nature, it doesn't mean that he has to stay. I mean, unless you get paid extra for making it to the end, but who knows. Either way, the likelihood of him really deciding on Janelle seems like it's up in the air. And then when it comes to Maria, the only one who, based off of how he was in the beginning and making it to the end, it's very surprising that he's on the love triangle, but setting that aside, he is in this place where he has to figure out between Jessica and Katarina what his final decision is going to be. And with Jessica, the main issue seems to be her lack of openness when it comes to spirituality. And then I don't know if there's necessarily an issue with Katarina besides the fact that happened later on in the show, at least from Maria's perspective. Of course, we know from Katarina's perspective, the issue is Maria definitely gives friend vibes and it very much leans toward being in the friend zone, but as we mentioned in the past when it comes to Phil and Aries' relationship, not Phil and Aries, maybe it was Maria and Jessica, somebody's relationship. Sometimes the issue is not that somebody deserves to be in a friend zone because you're not hot and bothered by them, but maybe the issue is that you're so used to this one depiction of what love should be or come off as that you're limiting a person's potential just because it's not something that gets you hot and bothered to the point of acting foolish. So, getting to review section. I'm very happy for Lee self-eliminating because it feels very long overdue, and honestly, she probably overstayed her. I don't want to say she overstayed her welcome, but she definitely stayed longer than she should have. Because, as probably said many times before, she's likable, she's nice, but she didn't have that special something, it seemed. It's just, unlike Sierra and many of the others who've been eliminated, she just didn't have anything that could really push her to be something negative. So she stuck around because she was inoffensive, rather than because she really had something the men desired in some type of way. So, here's hoping either by the reunion show or after the process, she finds somebody who's up her speed, who she deserves, and etc. So for the second highlight, for us it's this whole Aries and Phil situation, and it's mainly because just where their mindset seems to be. Aries seems to be very geared toward having not only someone who could be a partner in all the fun things, but also a provider. Yet when it comes to Phil, his main focus is the provider part, since it seems he doesn't fully understand or comprehend how much anxiety it causes when your partner may not be financially stable. And in a way, you can see both sides to it. When it comes to Aries, the idea of someone you love not being financially stable means if things go south money-wise, it's all on you. Even if you get sick, even if you're not really able or willing to work like you once did, you can't stop or slow down because your partner is inconsistent and you are their foundation, if not their safety net. But at the same time, from Phil's perspective, he in his life has done the work. He's found ways to be more stable in terms of getting up that insurance train that he was on to something that is a little bit more consistent with the checks. It allows him to see his son more. So for someone to take his past, take his journey to this point and use it against him and kind of treat it like a negative rather than lessons that he's experienced in order to get to this point where he now knows what he needs to do and be, you can understand why that's very frustrating with him, especially if you want to stick to the whole gender norm thing of him being a man who should be a provider, stable, everything, and yet she refuses to recognize the work he's done in order to get to that point. But whether or not it's going to make or break them is something we'll see in the next episode. Never mind the reunion show to see if long-term wise they made it or not. Distractions. Moving to the on the fence piece, honestly, I'm just kind of questioning why are most of these people recognizing these issues just now? But a part of me recognizes I need to remember the issue with Ready to Love since the beginning has been, as much as it's about finding love, it's also a competition series. So as much as you need to discover your connection with this person or that person, you also got to maintain weak or iffy connections in order to stay in the game. Otherwise, it doesn't matter if you're connected with this person or that person because people feel like you're close off to them. So because of that, F you, get off the show. You're not ready to love. So with that in mind, you have to stick to a lot of the superficial, to the niceties, and you can't really get into the dark stuff because that's when arguments happen. That's when there's a potential of you losing a connection, as we saw with Chris and Jessica, and it turning ugly to the point where it gets you off the show, even if you have a good amount of people who seem to have an interest in you. So with that in mind, a part of me wonders why some like Lee stuck on the show so long, why Phil and Aries are just now really starting to deal with this financial thing. But when your focus is about making it toward the end, it's not going to really focus too much on whether or not you want to stick to the end with this person or not. Overall, when it comes to Ready to Love, it still feels very unfortunate that when it comes to this season especially, and even maybe the last few seasons, it seems like there's less and less of a chance of people finding love, but more and more of a chance of viewers finding entertainment, especially as there's more setups for the reunion show than it is for the final three couples, and you really feeling like you went on a journey with somebody to find love and can even potentially attain that in your own personal life.